You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB. Football Fever with News Talk ZB's voice of football, Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen.
Welcome into Football Fever, your weekly football fix of all things around football in New Zealand, slightly further afield and I guess across the world if that's what we decide to do. I'm Jason Pine. Bonnie Jansen's here too. How's your weekend, Bonnie?
G'day, Piney. Not too bad, thanks. Another weekend with some good results.
Some really good results. Lots of football to unpack, both on and off the field, actually. In fact, can we start off the field? Because we heard the news last week, Thursday it was, that Chloe Knott, one of the Phoenix's foundation players and really the cornerstone of the side, she's played in every single one of the Phoenix's games since their inauguration into the A-League Women's. She's decided that she will step away from football. The Phoenix put out in a statement that it was the challenges of balancing a full-time job and part-time A-League commitments. That was the problem. Later on that evening, Chloe Knott posted on social media saying, yes, that's true. It was financially unsustainable, but there were other reasons behind her decision. And she said she'd worked out that her values no longer align with the club or with current management. First of all, did this come as a surprise to you?
Oh, such a surprise. But then at the same time, not a surprise because I have heard how these female players are struggling with the pay and the commitment and often working, you know, like it's a full-time gig, but not getting paid like that. And so, like, yes, it was a surprise just because it's Chloe Knott and as you say, she's been a stalwart of this team, but not a surprise for that reasoning if it was, purely financial, which, I mean, as you mentioned, it didn't seem that was just the case. Yeah,
the financial part of it is something we can get to in a second, and there clearly has to be a change here because it's unsustainable, especially with a salary cap of $600,000 across an entire squad of 18 to 20 players. You're really, you know, looking at players getting 30, 35 grand, and yes, it's effectively a part-time job, but they're dedicating their lives to this. So we can get to that in a sec. The comments, though, from Chloe Knott regarding her values and those values no longer aligning with the club or club management. What do you think she means?
Yeah, I'm not too sure exactly what has gone on. I mean, we have seen Paul Temple come in as a new coach, and to give him some credit, he's produced the results, and it's the best season they've had ever. So there's clearly something that's gone on, and I don't think it's a matter of, you know, not being the coach's favourite or things like that, but Chloe is very professional and she's one of the more senior players in that team, even though she is still quite young, and I don't think she would have mentioned something like that she articulated her message so well, so don't think she would have done that had something not happened. But I mean, it's got to be around something to do with money. Maybe contract talks didn't go as planned. I'm not sure, but again, really gutting to see something has happened between the management and the players, and hopefully this is going to spark, you know, a conversation that clearly needs to be had.
That's interesting because when I read it, I didn't read it to be a money thing. Yes, she said that it's unsustainable, and that was sort of covered off in her original, the statement that came out from the club. And she also, of course, mentioned it when she put her post on social media. But she also said, I want to work in an environment where all employees feel valued and respected in every phase of their career, where their commitment and sacrifice is understood and appreciated without needing to ask for it first. Yes, that could relate to money, but, you know, she also talks about authenticity and honesty, and she wants to work in a place where, she can experience joy and personal fulfillment and growth. I'm not sure that this is necessarily all a money thing, is it?
I know, and this is why it's so confusing. And I mean, you could look at who's been playing the games this season, and consider, you know, someone like Alyssa Winham, who has been in those squads, the last couple of years, and then now she's not there. There's must be something going on, but again, I'm not actually too sure what it is. But again, hopefully it sparks a conversation, and she's started something here and raised what clearly is a big issue for some of these players.
For the club's part, they issued a statement saying, "We admire Chloe Knott as a player and a person too much to respond to her comments in the media. The club respects her opinion and will continue to work to champion the Wellington Phoenix women's team. A lot of time," they go on to say, "has been invested into our women's program on and off the pitch over the past 6 months to a point where we believe it's the best high-performance environment in the league. We've created an environment players want to be a part of." Now, nobody from the club has been, certainly from the women's side of the club, has been in a media situation since this happened, because it just so happened that the women were on an international break. But this week they're back. I know a couple of Wellington Phoenix players are up for media on Wednesday, and then Paul Temple is scheduled to do media on Friday. So there's absolutely no doubt that these questions are going to be asked. So do you think we'll find out any more, or do you think the same sorts of things will be said that the club statement has said, and we really won't be any the wiser?
Yeah, I think it's a really tricky situation for the Wellington Phoenix, and I'm not doubting that something has happened that is, left Chloe feeling the need to make this rash decision. But it's tricky for the Phoenix because there is that salary cap, and that's out of their control. But at the same time, they kind of do need to front up and respect their players, because over on the men's side they're earning so much more, but you could argue they're generating just as much the same. They're not necessarily getting bums on seats, and I'd say that's the same for a few clubs in the A-League. So definitely questions need to be raised, and I don't think using the excuse of we respect Chloe too much, so we're not going to respond to her, I don't think that's a justifiable response. So hopefully we hear more this week. Yeah,
I'm sure we will. As far as the other irony of it, Bonnie, is that the club the team are playing brilliantly. It's not as though they're losing every game, and I know it's a side issue as far as the way Chloe feels is concerned, but it's not as though they're losing every week. They're if they win on the weekend, they could go into the top two. So that's another odd thing. You mean? I think people jump to the conclusion that it's something to do with the coach. I don't know whether that's true or not. But Paul Temple has clearly got this team playing well. And I guess in many ways he will have the opportunity later in the week to give his side of the story or his reaction to what Chloe has said. But if we look at on the field, the team's playing better than they ever have in their albeit short life.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is me kind of thinking what's happened here, and maybe if you look at it, that midfield is actually really strong, and had Macy Fraser not been unwell for that last game they had against Perth Glory, Chloe Knott could have been on the bench, and maybe it was a matter of I'm not probably going to get game time in this new competitive squad, and it doesn't justify sitting on the bench and not making enough money, and maybe that was it. But again, I don't think Chloe is that unprofessional to think that way, and so something has happened, and we can't jump to the conclusion that it's purely Paul Temple. She mentioned management, but as you say, they're performing well, so it's a real dampener on how their season has gone so far.
Yeah, even though she might not have been a shoo-in in the first 11, she will be hard to replace on the field, especially with Grace Wisniewski out of the squad or out for the season with her knee injury. Annalie Longo, though, as we know, is able to start games now. She did the other day. Macy Fraser hopefully back from the illness that kept her out of both that game and this Football Ferns tour, and Kate Taylor in behind. So you have your Longo, Fraser, Taylor midfield, but Chloe Knott certainly a very handy player to have around. As I say, no game over the weekend for the Phoenix women. They play Melbourne Victory in Porirua Sunday afternoon from 4:00. The Phoenix are third, Victory are fourth, just 2 points behind them. So it'll be a good test for the Phoenix out at Porirua Park. The top two, meantime, Melbourne City and Perth Glory, play on Saturday night. So if Perth don't win that game and the Phoenix beat Victory, Wellington will be up to second on the table. So we'll look forward to reviewing that for you in a week or so.
The FFP with Piney and Bonnie.
Let's go to the men's. Phoenix 1-0 winners over Western United. Ben Old scoring the winner. Wellington Phoenix at top of the table, Bonnie.
I thought of you when that happened, that win happened, and we've gone to the top. I thought of you. I was like, Piney's going to be so happy. His beloved Wellington team, finally here at the top.
It's really, really hard sometimes to sort of, in the last couple of days to, get your head around it because, let's be honest, the Wellington Phoenix have been a team that for, their entire 17-year life haven't really lived in the upper echelons of the table very often. And let's not get too carried away. We're only 6 games in. But you can only do what you can do, and a couple of things about this have been really impressive. One is the defence, which has led to this. 3 clean sheets after 6 games. Previously, the earliest the Phoenix ever got to 3 clean sheets in a season was 9 games in. And in the last 4 seasons, listen to this, in Ufuk Talai's reign, his 4 seasons at the helm, to get to 3 clean sheets in a season, it took 17, 20, 17 and 17 games. And they've got there in 6 games this time. That speaks to a markedly improved defensive strategy.
Oh, it's insane. And I low-key feel bad for Ufuk Talai because Chiefy has come in and just, changed the game. He's done so well with the side. And we were talking a few weeks ago on the podcast being like, is it too soon to kind of say that they're going to go far this season? But, we're not deep, but we're pretty deep into the competition now, and they're still going strong. It's more than just a good start, and I think they're real shoo-ins to continue this momentum. I
think what I said a couple of weeks ago, or last week I think it was, also stands true, and that's that when if you bank some points at the start of the season, it allows you some freedom and some flexibility to go through some troughs mid-season, which hasn't always been the case for the Phoenix because they've had their bad run typically at the start of seasons. Whereas now with this bank of 14 points after 6 games, if we look back, for example, to last season, the Phoenix finished 6th with 35 points. They've got 14 points already, so what's that, 21 points. So they've only got to win 7 of their remaining 20 games to get into a top 6 position if we take last season's points tally as our guide. So, all of a sudden we're not talking about the Phoenix trying to make the top 6. They'll be, looking for home finals. And this from a team that at the start of the season, most people were picking to finish in the bottom 2.
Yeah, I thought with the lack of kind of international signings that they'd had and they were bringing in a lot of scholarship players, I was like, oh, this is going to be a rough season for them. New coach as well. But I'll give it to them. They've proved me so wrong and good on them. Alex Paulson's my new favourite player. I saw he skyrocketed in your power rankings you did last week, but he's just exceptional and we need him to keep having really, really good games and just those little saves, those little tips that just game-changing, I think, for the team.
Yeah, and again, at the risk of repeating ourselves from previous podcasts, when Ollie Sale left, I think people wondered, was Alex Paulson ready to make the step up? And my goodness, he has shown that he is more than ready. One of the best going around the A-League men's. The Phoenix play Newcastle on Saturday night at Sky Stadium, a 7:30 kickoff. Then it's away to Macarthur and at home to the Western Sydney Wanderers before Christmas. So that's the task in front of the Wellington Phoenix men. Just a quick word on Costa Barbarouses as well, who was man of the match the other night. I think he's perhaps been unfairly, criticised, really, if we're not going to put too fine a point on it, by fans in his previous, certainly last season, and in his 1 year stint here in 2017-18. But I think Costa Barbarouses has found some sort of new lease of life. He's looked excellent this season and been one of the other standout players who I've really enjoyed watching. So long may it continue for the Wellington Phoenix, top of the league after 6 games, and Newcastle, their next opponent, coming up on Saturday night.
This is Football Fever.
The reason the women didn't have a game, as I mentioned, was because of the international window. The Football Ferns with games against Colombia. The second of those is on Wednesday. The first was yesterday, Sunday morning, a 0-0 draw, 2,600 metres above sea level at energy-sapping altitude. How do you assess this performance against a team that went to the quarterfinals at the World Cup this year?
Oh, it's pretty exciting. I mean, it was a young team, and as I saw the lineup come through, I was really stoked that Jitka Kimkova, the coach, was a little bit flexible and started some of the younger players. We saw, of course, 2 Wellington Phoenix stars, Mackenzie Barry and Michaela Foster, start in the 2 fullback positions. But it's just so promising. And I kind of thought after that 0-0 result, I was like, hold on, maybe Colombia played a second tier team as did we. But no, I think they had 8 players start in that game that they had play against England in the quarterfinal at the World Cup. So really, really promising considering the young team we had can get a result like that against Colombia. And yeah, some questions have got to be asked of those senior players that weren't actually there yesterday.
Well, I think that what it's done is for those players who took their places, it's given them an opportunity to say, you know what, I want to be in this the starting 11 as we head towards Paris next year. Great chance to win it late on. A mix-up at the far post from a corner between Katie Bowen and Ava Collins. Rather than one of the two of them heading the ball home or certainly steering it goalwards, they kind of ran into one another, didn't they? That was, a golden opportunity to score what would have probably been the winning goal.
Yeah, I think that was my only kind of downside with the game, is we still couldn't score, and it looked like a bit of a lack of communication there in that goal box. But and that's still a concern, but I think the defensive effort without the likes of CJ Bott and Ali Riley and even Rhea Percival is pretty impressive, and it's got to be applauded because they've done really well. Still concerning we can't score goals, it seems, but I guess against a team like Colombia they've done really well.
Yeah, that is the one glaring stat that jumps out. 15 games this year New Zealand have played, 5 goals. 5 goals in 15 games. That is not going to earn you progress in any way, shape or form. So I was excited, though, to see Grace Jale given that role at centre forward. We both talked about that last week with Hannah Wilkinson out. Grace Jale, it is her natural position. I was pleased to see her given an opportunity. Jackie Hand buzzing around, India Page Riley as well. I thought Annalise was good in goal. Vic Essen has been the first choice number 1 for a wee while now, but good to see Annalise keep a clean sheet. And Malia Steinmetz just continues to impress me. Just the way she sits at the base of that midfield. She's playing regularly in Denmark at the moment. Rhea Percival's had that role for New Zealand for a long time. I think Malia Steinmetz is a player who could take over that mantle as our kind of midfield enforcer for the next World Cup cycle. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Malia's played exceptional this year, and just seeing her link up again yesterday with the likes of Jackie Hand and Grace Jale, who she grew up playing with at both school and club level, it's something special, and they have this unspoken bond on the field, and I think we need to see more opportunities of them linking up, and that I think, I was really stoked that Yitka was a bit flexible and changed things up. I would still like her to use her 5th sub because, why not? And an international friendly would have been great to see Minaya Elliott or someone like that get on the field. But again, it was promising signs for sure. Yeah,
game 2's on Wednesday, as I say. There's still a potential for some debuts for the likes of Minaya Elliott, as you mentioned. Marisa van der Meer is there. Although in the case of those two, they were late additions to the squad, brought in because of injuries to others. So it's not as though they were first choices. For example, if Macy Fraser had gone, you would have expected her to get a Football Ferns debut in one of these 2 matches. Ruby Nathan's the other one, isn't she playing in Canberra at the moment, who could potentially debut off the bench. How do you think Yitka will play it, having secured a pretty good result, as you say, against a World Cup quarter-finalist? Do you think she'll stick with largely the same side for game 2?
I hope she does, just so they can kind of back it up and get into their groove a bit more, feel more relaxed, knowing that, they can actually hold their own. But I would like to see maybe a change of substitutes and having a bit more of a play around there. But can I just say as well, that crowd, I don't know if you saw that crowd in Colombia, it was huge, and I thought it was awesome for the game. So hopefully that we can see that again. And it's pretty loud through my laptop screen as I watch. So
I think
great for the gals.
Yeah, the ground holds 39,000, and it was well, I don't think it was quite full, but certainly there would have been over 30,000 there. The disappointing part of it, I guess, and because it's a midweek game, you can perhaps understand it. The second game's played at a stadium that only has a 10,000 capacity. So, right. But then again, if they fill up 10,000 and the noise the Colombian football fans make, it should still be a pretty good atmosphere. So 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning for game 2. Just before we go, a piece of news that's dropped in the last couple of hours or so. Auckland's A-League franchise has appointed Terry McFlynn as their Director of Football. He's going to oversee the club's player and coach recruitment for the men, the women, the academy and the football operations department. Terry McFlynn, a bit of a stalwart and a legend at Sydney FC, played over 200 games across all competitions, then stayed on the football staff. He was general manager of football and oversaw a pretty successful period from 2016 onwards. He's a licensed player and coach agent, has a UEFA A licence, and will head up the football department at the new Auckland A-Leagues franchise. So we wait and see now who the head coach might be. That will probably be the next announcement that we get out of the Auckland A-Leagues franchise. They don't have a heck of a lot of time, less than a year to pull it all together. So I guess we'll find out in the next little while who the head coach of the men's team anyway will be for their maiden A-League men's season. Thanks as always, Bonnie. Big week ahead, or rather a big weekend at the end of this week with both the Wellington Phoenix men and women in action, plus, of course, the Football Ferns on Wednesday. So I guess we'll reconvene next Monday and wrap it all up.
Looking forward to it, Piney. Thank you.
This is Football Fever. For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.